Welcome to the Tanz im August podcast. This podcast series is part of the Tanz im August Festival, presented by HAU Hebbel am Ufer. This year it takes place from 13th to 30th of August in Berlin. Several artists from this year's program have been invited to join a conversation series. In each episode, they share insights into their lives and creative work. The artists talk about their past and current projects and offering in-depth perspectives on the works they are presenting at Tanz im August. In this episode, Alina Lauer, dramaturg and producer of the festival, talks with Nora chipaumire. Her new work, Dambudzo, was presented during Tanz im August 2025 at Alte Münze Berlin.
Hi, and welcome, Nora. Thanks so much for having this talk with me, this podcast recording today in Berlin, actually. It's the first podcast we record, not remotely, but on site. So I'm very happy you're the first one.
Well, this is also beautiful. It's fantastic to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming back to the festival.
And
actually.
back to the festival,
Yeah.
Tanz am August. I actually want to say, is this our third time?
I think it is. I think I've witnessed 2 times of one of your pieces.
Okay.
Tanz im August already.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a three-peat is very beautiful.
Yeah, it is. So some of our listeners might already know who you are, but there might be people not really knowing because they're maybe from our younger generation and haven't witnessed the previous performances in Berlin. So would you like to describe yourself in a few words, like, who are you?
I would try. It's always tricky talking about oneself. I like to make things. That's what I like to do. And those things sometimes come out as music. Sometimes they come out as objects. Sometimes as movement. Sometimes as short films. There's a whole bunch of branding scenarios that, 30 years in the industry, you're kind of asked to think about where you fit in or where you do not. I think my sort of do-it-yourself kind of interventions have always been on the margins of something. And I like to think of it as all anti-genre. Perhaps a shorter way of describing myself is I am an anti-genre artist, and I follow my heart. And I'm interested in working with others and in creating constituencies, with the public. So also not following any prescribed way of how we imagine life events to unfold. How do we get the public to be a part of what we are thinking and doing? And how do we shift spaces so that they're more habitable in a way for an international kind of personage rather than perhaps only people who grow up with art history, etc., etc. Now I've said a lot, but that's what I'd like to think of myself as.
Thank you very much for the short description. I still would say, because I think there's a lot of things you actually could say. But what already was quite interesting for me now listening to you is how creating spaces and not necessarily creating pieces is maybe what you're trying to do, like also creating encounters. So if you now look at the piece we're going to have here in Tanz im August this year, Dambudzo, how does it work? Maybe for people who haven't seen it, like how does it work spatially with the audience? What's the invitation you give to people?
So the invitation is to invest in the time and the proximity to each other. All of us to invest in that action of being together in proximity to each other, as opposed to distancing from each other. And how we manage to create this situation is we remove all the barriers that create an us and them, which is usually a frame or proscenium or some kind of platform that allows a public to sit outside of that. So there is no barrier. There are no chairs, for instance. I mean, we will, obviously we are mindful of different handicaps that people have. But also this space at Alte Münze, I hope I'm saying it correctly, does allow for leaning on walls, sitting on stairs, other alternative and different ways to be in a room whilst we're inviting your cooperation, basically your cooperation and investment. I also prefer that word quite a bit. Invest. How do we invest in being together, whether we're listening to a piece of music or whether we're being invited to be in a movement, gestural, physical, actionable action together, or whether we're drinking together, because also, part of the invitation, which is, I think, very Southern African, very Zimbabwean, is free beers. Free beers. So how do we congregate in a social situation that is also an art situation, that is also a very, critical situation.
Critical in what sense, if I may ask?
Critical in the sense that, there's no passivity. Mm-hmm. We very much have built a work that discourages being passive. So the criticalness has to do with critical critique, critical engagement. I suppose there will always be people who are passive, but it will have to be critical passivity. So everybody works in other words. So, and also critical in the sense that I've felt for decades even that unless we creative people come up with other ways in which theater lives, it's really a dead thing, or it's on its deathbed, it's taking its last breath. So critical in that way. How do we reimagine being together, a public and performer?
So if I may connect it to the title, actually.
Yes.
So you're putting us at trouble. You're putting the arts at trouble, right? Because I think that's what the word Dambudzo in Shona language means. Could you explain a bit more? Because I think there's more behind the title. It's trouble, but also there's a writer that had his name.
Dambudzo, yes, does mean both trouble and or problem. This is sort of a gray area, something not so easy when, it also could refer death and dying, something kind of not in the positive side of things. So yes, we want to trouble the space. In the manner in which the Zimbabwean writer Dambudzo Marechera, who is just so invested in how he talked about the Zimbabwean experience, or also his personal experience growing up during the war times, during color bar areas, during indirect rule, during the colonial project. And he is doing this with the English language. So I'm fascinated by the stories he has to say, but also the way in which he troubles the English language. He does not approach it as a light thing. To me, it feels like rumble in the jungle. It's a physical, kinetic act that he brings to the English language. So you really feel when you read his seminal work, A House of Hunger, just how physical language can be. So I relate to Dambudzo on that ground, on the physicality of both language and the gesture of movement. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And sound as well. I mean, sound is words, even if it's coming out as song, that is also a physical thing. Yes.
So maybe you're not only anti-genre, but maybe trans-genre in a way that energy flows through different mediums and translates.
I wouldn't, I mean, that's also a word that I feel is kind of sexy, is used around trans this, transnational, trans. I don't know if necessarily transcends a certain marker, because everyone has their marker for, this is the bar, this is the bar. What I really do object to is, this should be dance, this should be sound, this should be. So to what will it be like to have no genre? I am a very poorly educated person. So a great deal of my body of work is school for me, is study. This is how I learn new things. Whether it's, what is sound, how far do you stand away from a microphone, and how do you sing with others? Some people in the team have more experience in the world of sound making or cinema making or even movement than I do. Yeah, so, the group is this complex network of people with varying skills. And so we learn also, this is the other thing that is troubling, is that the location, where are we in this Dambudzo work? We are in a house that is a shebeen. And a shebeen is, it's kind of a legal hangout where in Southern Africa you can have beer, you can talk politics, you can read together, there's women, there's food, or there's men, there is this kind of milieu that is not so much of a salon, but it activates socially and intellectually in a way that salons in Europe did. So shebeens for me are these hidden universities, private universities in someone's house, and everyone in the location, because this is a location is also the word we use for the all Black areas. Now we call them high density areas, but still people use this word, the location, a location. So this is a location where it would be 100% African. And during the colonial projects, clearly spaces where big and small things can potentially happen.
It's very nice, actually, as a concept or an idea. And I think in the description for the piece, you also say something like that it's a place where revolutions could potentially start.
As well.
Because it has this potentiality of, and it's rumors probably within the exchange of the communal aspect.
Rumors within the community, who's done what, who's gone where. And also you don't know who is gathering there, because people have multi faces. It could be a daytime school teacher, but nighttime they're the people who are ferrying some comrades from one place to another. And also because these locations, the shebeens, were all African, the language being exchanged is always Shona. So it also cuts out the settler communities. So they're not there, but they may be there in terms of spies and la. But the prevalence of Shona, that as people are being asked to join the industries and work in mines and work in all kinds of productions, in the city, you have this place almost of refuge that you can go to after work, in which you are in your mother tongue. You are in a different cadence, in a different frequency, in a different even smells, taste, visual, oral kind of space, because this is now an African space. At work, for instance, when I was growing up, going to school as a young African girl, we were never allowed to speak Shona at school, even if they were all African schools. The African teachers would make sure that we learned the lesson. So we spoke English during the daytime, and when we went home, Shona is the language of the home.
Is the language also part of the performance, actually?
Absolutely. Language is, you will hear a lot of Shona, which we share without apology. And because these are languages which we were discovered using and are still using, very profound, very old languages, as good as any other language. In fact, earlier when we were talking about the meaning of Dambudzo, and I was straddling between problem and, trouble, because, if you were a Shona speaker, you would get the nuance, the weight of the word, which does not really have an English correspondence. So we let the Shona sit, shower us all, and hopefully it is landing like any melody, it's sound. And not everything needs to be translated. I think part of the critique that we're also doing is this question of legibility. What needs to be legible and what can remain opaque?
And for whom, probably,
and
right?
For whom should things be legible or accessible, let's say? And does it make a difference in your comprehension of the work, whether a Shona word is spoken here, there, and there? So that's also what the work is provoking, or what all the work tries to provoke, that space of recognition that, the empire may be dead, but we're still asked very much to work within, the codes that we have inherited or that have been forced on us all, global North and global South alike.
Yeah, true. Can you tell us more about your collaborators? Because now that you say people speak Shona, like, who are these people? Where did you find them? How did you come together as a group? How is it going in the creation process with everybody?
That's an important question. The team, I like to use this word team, because we're either a team in the sense of sports, and I really love the way teams work, whether it's soccer, or, everybody has a position and a role to play, and without that person and that role, the work is imbalanced. So everybody is critical to the success of the work. Or frequently I also call us a band, because there's also the way in which bands work, that we work as such too, spontaneously.
In tune.
Yes.
Probably, in the best case.
in the best way. And we can do this because we've known each other. There's no, we don't audition. I've never had the desire to find people that way. So people generally come to the work out of love for the practices or the processes, or something touches them about the work and they just want to be part of it. And so they just become embedded, and pretty soon we figure out what to do with them. Most of them I've known for over 10 years, maybe some 15 years. So we're a long durational kind of unit. And I'm a very loyal person. I also have this belief that the longer we know each other, the better the work gets. And this is true also of the technical team. I've worked with Heidi Eckwell, who's from Minneapolis, since maybe 2009. I mean, different projects. So a very long-term and ongoing living relationship of how do we think through things, the objects in the human relationship. There is Tyrone Isaac Stewart, who is English from London, who is both saxophonist and a dancer. So there's Tatenda Chabalwa, who's from Zimbabwe, who's a mbira player, a singer, and a dancer. There is Soko Jenna, who is a mbira player, and also a mover. There's Jonathan Daniel, who we think could still be the youngest in the team, at like maybe 24 or something, who's also a drummer and a mover, and Fatima Katiji, who is a legend in Harare as a singer, actually.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Very much working with, very high-end, well-known musicians, and herself very much well-known as an individual. We have a newer member who's new to Dambudzo, but not new to our universe in general, Joyce Edwards from New York, who's replacing one of our dancers who's off on maternity leave. And then there's Shamar Wayne Watt, who I've worked with since 2015. Mm-hmm. There's Shika Yusri, who I've known also for close to 10 years. It was Egyptian. So our team tends to be Zimbabwean, American, European, if England is still Europe. But also we have Germans in our tech team. So Europe and, North Africa, Egypt. It's the broadest, kind of gathering of people from, the world.
So interesting that you're able to hold it together, geographically alone.
Yes.
Because people are so far away in different time zones. Yeah. So, my fullest respect for that you managed to, hold this team or this band.
Yes, the time zones. The time zone thing is important to recognize, and we recognize that the world, the planet, is turning around, and time is shifting. But that doesn't mean we can't make something to happen. So how do we work, within this kind of movement, because it's constant movement. How do we make it? And also it's a movement of not only the planets in terms of the sun and the moon and all that, but it's also language, because between, some people speak German, some people speak French, some people speak English, some people speak Shona. How do we, even Arabic, how do we make it work? It's a beautiful, beautiful work. Yeah, our mini world, United Nations. Like, I want to be with these people because that's the world that makes sense. That is the world that makes sense to me.
This is the world you want to create. This is the world you want to see.
This is the world I live in with my team. This is the world which would be really beautiful if we all kind of said no to borders, time zones, gender, age, because we run the gamut from like early 20s to over 60, in the team in Dambudzo, and that is of critical importance to me.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
If I may ask something completely different.
Yeah. Let's veer off the.
So in the set design, there's one major piece, like centerpiece, I think that everybody will recognize. It's a huge dog.
Yes.
What is this dog? Why is it there?
This dog is a Rhodesian Ridgeback, which I think perhaps not many people are aware that these dogs were bred by the Rhodesians with a primary need to control Africans. It is a cross, I believe, between, and I could be wrong if anyone knows better, you can tell me, between like a German Shepherd and a hyena. These are enormous dogs, enormous. So during the Rhodesian time, dogs were one of the ways in which you could control movement of people from one zone to another, say from the locations into the suburbia where, although clearly there's racial division. And dogs remain kind of a huge symbol for me and my own personal appreciation of the life I've lived, that dogs mark a moment that is clearly Rhodesia. The fear of dogs, the menacing sound. So, it's the Blackie the dog, we call him Blackie the dog, is there to remind us of this rumble underneath, which I think Dambudzo also in his writing, constantly reminds you that there is a war going on. People are not doing well. And then there's also a personal war of coming to terms with the trauma that these conditions sort of bred in all of us, and also how inhuman humans are. I think it's probably George Orwell who said that, the inhumanity of man to man, that now in current times, we don't remember to be kind or to be nice. We've become the pack of menacing dogs, towards each other. So dogs the dogs run from beginning to end and forever. They're constantly there. So when we leave, when you enter, you hear the sound of barking dogs. When you leave, you should carry the sound. It should haunt us all. That, people could use these animals for anything other than what their dogs should be, which is a man's best friend. But clearly not for some men's best friends.
Which is also depending on the social structure dogs are born into or made into, right?
Absolutely.
And that's also maybe what they resemble. Like an animal that just exists in that form because of its interaction with the human. So it always is an image of time or social structure, interest of some people against some others.
Absolutely. And just, I'm not so much into the human animal sort of debates, but how we can incorporate all living species into our world. How can we incorporate it? I mean, I would have loved to have actual ridgebacks running around because they're enormous. They're like small donkeys, quite glorious to look at, unless you have this kind of traumatic relationship that I have. But I think in most European countries, those dogs are banned. In theatrical spaces, like they're not on the no list.
There's strict rules.
Yeah, they're actually strict,
Before, you also said that sound is very important, and you mentioned also that there's so many people in the cast that are singers or like saxophonists or have a certain tie to musical expression.
Yes.
And now you mentioned the dog's bark. There seems to be a quite elaborate soundscape.
Absolutely. The dog barkings are digitally kind of manipulated, and They ebb and flow. Sometimes they're in the foreground, sometimes in the background, but always kind of constantly there. And then there are, voices of humans in real time and space. And we also have a culture of talking to each other as we are doing this work, as if we're field workers. You don't go to the field and not talk to the person planting next to you. So we have just this
chatting.
We chat along. Because I consider work to be life. So we're living. I see you say, hey, how about you over there? We're doing okay. It also keeps us very much connected. Yes, because often we can't see each other, but we can hear each other. So the ability to hear another human's voice from the corner, knowing that the dogs are going to constantly run their interferences. And also, we throw clay at a wall, mud. Initially, this would have been stones, but we're really throwing, like, we don't act out anything. We leave the thing. So we changed it to a material that if you were hit by, you would not necessarily need an ambulance. But you will feel the physical effect of something landing on your body. So there's also the sound. And we, in the end, we have this painting that is made out of this gesture of throwing, as if you are throwing stones at somebody. The sound of that also punctuates the space, as is, the public moving, following actions from this quarter to this location. The movement of the people is part of the score. So there's never, sound. There is sound everywhere. There's never a quiet moment. I mean, we also play soccer, because this is what everybody grows up doing in Zimbabwe. Soccer is a very accessible sport. Young, old, in between can do it. And you can't play soccer in silence.
No.
You have to communicate, hey, look out, throw the ball. There's a constant chattering and on the soccer pitch. So I like also to transfer, things that everybody can do into spaces where not everybody can be. Yeah.
Interesting. And also the soccer playing connects back to the idea of a team.
Yes.
There's again the idea
Absolutely.
of that, which is nice. So thank you for telling us so much about the piece. And I hope that everybody listening will be super intrigued by it and curious. I am, I have to say. And as some people might revisit your work by coming to Dambudzo, could you maybe tell us how this process around this piece maybe also shaped your role as an artist? Like, did it change you? Or is it like, don't you see this piece as a separate thing that happens to you? Is it more part of a bigger process? What do you consider a work? Because before you also said your work, and sometimes I had the feeling you mean the piece itself, but sometimes you mean your work as an artist in general.
So I consider work to be life itself. There is no moment that I'm not at work, I feel. And some of it is paid work, some of it is unpaid work. But however, it's all work, it's all labor, thinking, digging, constructing. So yes, frequently I'm talking like this particular work, but it's all connected to the body of work, even my body, So hopefully it doesn't sound bizarre or highfalutin, but my body is the work because I walk into the room and the work is happening. I walk in the street and the work is happening. There is a work of shifting a certain regard, or deflecting a certain regard, or inviting a certain regard. I feel often in Europe that the Black body is always at work. It is also at work in Africa, but perhaps in a different register. So work is constant and work is glorious. For me, it is not a bad thing. And I talk of work because it's work that comes out of my heart and my imagination. It is not work that is dictated to me by anyone. So in this sense, I am very fortunate that I can often unpack what is in my heart and what is in my head into something that is animated in a way that others can see. So everything starts with me because really I believe the work has been a kind of self-portrait, all of it, telling the world about what it's like to have been born Nora Chipaumire, this African girl in what was then called Rhodesia, into now what is called Zimbabwe. Born in 1965, and I'm 60 years old this year. So this life has been about thinking, what is life? What is living? And how do I participate in a world of ideas? Because I believe really in ideas, and I believe in intelligent life and in thinking bodies. So I have an idea. And I call the team, hey, who's there? Can we gather and see if we can maybe workshop process? We are constantly in process. Even the act of sharing the work with the public is a process. We're discovering we just never are 100% sure or in the know, because I think also to know is to die a certain death. So we don't know. A new place like Alte Münze allows us to think differently of how we could be here. The summer allows us of a different way in which our bodies are moving in this space. So I gather whoever is available, always from the same pool of people. And I think over the years, we've all developed a love and a commitment to think together, Each person has their skills and gifts. No person is empty. So it is the beauty of who they are within this mix of practice. We all practice Naka, which is a movement practice that we've been building for over 10 years now. We all practice together to find a way in which we can think together. Like so Naka, I would say the practice is like an alphabet. So when you have an alphabet in common, then you can make up different words and syntaxes and sentences and paragraphs, etc., etc. So this is how it works for me as the person who conceptualizes what the work is. And I also perform. I have yet to stop being in the work. So there's also a bit of complicitness with other bodies. How are we all together in the same space, making all this kind of articulations and re-articulations of certain things, of a certain word. Sometimes it's different when someone else says it, and maybe it's the same when we all say it together. That's kind of how the work kind of evolves. And have I become a different person? I think every work, as I said, is a way to study, is a way to challenge myself, is a way to learn new skills, kind of punk at heart. So the do-it-yourself ethos is very much part of my life. So yes, I think every work allows for a different reading list to emerge, for different roadmaps to be either re-articulated or, you find a new road. Yeah, each work allows for something new to happen. And it's also exciting when work allows for a new kind of event. So for instance, we did Dambudzo in Sao Paulo in Brazil. And it was our first time as a team to Brazil and to Sao Paulo. So allowing that kind of regional kind of expansion is also exciting. It's because then we all are in very new contexts, new languages, and how, So for me, it's about growing, constant challenge, and complications.
There's the trouble again, huh?
And troubling this life. Yeah.
And embracing probably at the same time. And I would say thank you for that gesture of also embracing the audience in that way, inviting them to be invested in the same way, probably.
Thank you.
And you just said that maybe your work is your life. And normally I would thank you for being here and for giving us your work. But in that sense, I could also say thank you for your life.
Yes, I'm really, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Really. It's always nice when you go back to cities that we love, festivals that we care about. It says something about the festival. We deepen kind of the investment in the city as well. So it's a beautiful thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora, for talking to me.